A few months ago, we pitted the Chopard Laureato against the AP Royal Oak, and we asked the question as to whether it was something that could really hold up to an icon like the Royal Oak. Well, in the comments, one of you asked, what about the Chopard Alpine Eagle? Well, that's why we're here today. Now, much like the Laureato, the Alpine Eagle is actually a product of the design language of the time of the Royal Oak. The Royal Oak was released in 1972. Meanwhile, in 1980, Chopard introduced the St. Moritz, what would eventually evolve into what we know today as of 2019, into the Alpine Eagle. It was definitely something that was inspired by the Royal Oak and the segment created by the Royal Oak back in the early 70s and that carried on straight through the 80s. This is also the same time period where we got the original MDM Genève Hublot, of course the Ingenieur, which was designed by Gerald Genta, the same with the Nautilus. The Laureato came in 1975. This era brought about so many different integrated bracelet sports watches. Even Rolex got in on it with the Oyster Quartz. But what was interesting about the St. Moritz is how it took elements of its forebears, but also put a new spin on them. You can see, looking at the design, you can see echoes of the Royal Oak in terms of the screws, but this time they're only at the 12, 3, 6, and 9, and they're all double screws instead of single ones. It features a much softer look in comparison to the hard edges of the Royal Oak, and it even featured little winglets similar to what you find on a Nautilus. But where it differs from the Royal Oak is in the bracelet. Fast forward to the reintroduction of the St. Moritz, rechristened as the Alpine Eagle, we found a huge difference between this and the Royal Oak, and this and the original St. Moritz, and that was in the dial. The Alpine Eagle shocked the watch world when they introduced this really amazing textured dial inspired by the iris of an eagle. From every angle that you shifted around, you can see different textures, different plays on the light. It was something totally different to what we've seen from a lot of other watches within the segment, in that it created a texture that was completely incomparable to what you see on the Royal Oak with its hobnail design. In addition to that, the bracelet is totally different to other integrated steel sports watches in that it has not really a multi-link design. Instead, it has a stripe of polish across all of the links, but all of the links are perfectly meshed together, almost as if they're not separate pieces but one cohesive piece. Now, of course, next to the Royal Oak needs no introduction. Since it came out in 1972, it has defined the segment and really created it from the very beginning. However, of course, the high demand, the iconic status, means that it trades for well over any of its competitors. Even in this case, to bring the comparison relatively similar, we actually had to go for the 36mm variant and compared it directly to the Alpine Eagle. Now, this particular variant that we have here is from the late 90s, so it does feature some echoes of a more vintage watch. The bracelet isn't as tight as most modern Royal Oaks, but it still carries that classic DNA from every angle. It has that trademark AP finishing across the bracelet and the case, meaning that as you roll it around, it plays with the light a little bit, and it's supremely thin as well. Being under 8mm, it'll easily hide beneath a cuff, and plays as a great option for being both a dress watch and a sports watch, courtesy of its screw-down crown. Now, this being the 36mm, most people would think that perhaps it'll be a little bit too small. But all Royal Oaks were a little bit bigger than their regular size, and you can see that in the comparison between the two of these. Both of them are rated at 36mm, but this one definitely wears a bit more like a 38 or a 39, whereas this one sits firmly in its 36mm size, but still works, and a lot of that is courtesy to its relatively true design to the original 1980s counterpart. It's always important to remember that older watches were designed and made smaller in their original forms, so they tend to work better when you look in their smaller sizes, instead of modern watches which have been scaled down just so that they can make a watch that fits everyone. These, meanwhile, were designs that were thought out from the beginning to be smaller, and that's why they work better in the smaller sizes as well. Now, the first thing that you notice as a difference between these two is really the fact that this somehow manages to shine even better than the AP, despite the fact that AP's finishing is so unique and so renowned for having that glitter ball effect, even when it's mostly satin finished. And that comes down to the second major improvement that Chopard made when they introduced the Alpine Eagle, and that was in the steel itself. They use what they call lucent steel, which is supposed to be not only more resistant to scratches and water damage, but is also much brighter when it's polished. And you can see that as you roll it around on your wrist. It's something that truly stands out and really in that sense takes the fight to AP. Movement-wise, these are both in-house movements, both of them very well made. However, of course, the AP movement is slightly better decorated. Meanwhile, the Chopard movement, while nice, does look a little bit more industrial in comparison. This would explain why the Chopard, even compared to an older AP, still sells for about half the price when you look at the retail price of this versus the pre-owned price of this. When you look at it in terms of pre-owned versus pre-owned, the savings are even better. But the question really remains at the end of the day, which would you prefer? Would you prefer spending the extra to get the iconic watch, or would you save some money and get a more modern watch that also has a few interesting tricks up its sleeve that really set it apart? What other watches do you think could take the fight to an icon like the Royal Oak, apart from, of course, the obvious comparison to the Nautilus? We'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Of course, if you like this video, make sure you like it and share it. If you want to see more videos about watches, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well so you know when the next video comes out. If you want to see more AP content, then make sure you check out our Audemars Piguet playlist. And if you're interested in either of these watches or our huge selection of new and pre-owned watches, then make sure you check out the links in the description below. But thanks for joining us on this quick comparison of two amazing integrated bracelet sports watches, and we'll catch you on the next video.